Hi everyone, I'm Nari, and I'm going to be joined by my co-host today, who is Liz. Welcome to our YouTube channel, which is called Nari and Liz, Women in Leadership. So we're starting a YouTube channel and podcast. This is the first episode. So in this episode, you'll get to know a little bit more about myself and Liz, and we'll be answering some key questions in leadership. So what is this all about? So what we're looking at here is leadership for women in career, in different industries, and also leadership in lifestyle. So what the point of this channel is to bring a voice to women in leadership, bringing about empowerment, and opportunity for women to feel like they're not alone in their journey towards leadership and in leadership. It's also looking at challenges and obstacles that women face and how to overcome them. Um, Looking at achieving leadership in balance also, because obviously as women we all know that we have lots of different hats to wear, lots of different roles to play, and still embracing that leadership challenge alongside everything else. Achieving leadership in a level of comfort in the roles that we play, looking at, like I said earlier, challenges, so things like imposter syndrome, things that hold us back, things that help us like confidence, motivation, self-belief, and overcoming our own barriers. And finally, we're also looking at becoming a visionary empath in the role of a leader and normalizing that. So in the past, we've acknowledged that that wasn't necessarily something that was acknowledged in the boardroom, but we want to work with authenticity and allow ourselves the confidence to be exactly who we are in our journey of leadership. So saying that, I'm going to introduce my co-host, as I said earlier, and her name's Liz. So Liz, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey, how you got here?
Sure, absolutely. Well, hello, everyone, and thanks for spending the time with us today. So in terms of who I am, coming to our partnership here, I have over 20 years in management and leadership, primarily in the public sector and in small business actually in North America, and in particular in Canada. So hello, sorry, that's always something that you always hear in Canada, and you often hear us say, sorry. Anyway, so sorry about that as I move on to tell you a little bit about my background. So interestingly, I had a particular vision of where I wanted to go as a 25-year-old woman. And today I do something very different. But one of the highlights of my career and what has brought me here has been working in classrooms, teaching leadership to executives in Canada. And I think that has been one of the best possible experiences for me and for others, in that we spend most of our time delving into things like being empathetic, working with our staff, caring about people, and really helping people find their way through the amass of corporate lifestyle and corporate environments in which we all operate. Clearly, women have a special set of challenges, and that's something that I'm very passionate about, and something that I'm very much looking forward to working with Nori about, and on this YouTube channel as we move forward into our next episodes. I also think that having been in a lot of different environments in science, in learning, in adult learning, in policy and public policy, also in actual athletic coaching over the years, both in the equestrian world and then as a corporate coach, coaching executives. It really has helped me to see a lot of breadth in terms of the roles for women in North America and in the world in general. So Nori, without further ado, tell us a little bit about yourself now.
Wow, that's just so inspirational just to hear that story. It's amazing. I feel absolutely blessed to be able to work with you, Liz. So yeah, I'm from the UK. So obviously we have this cultural difference between us, which I love. And yeah, I started off on my career, literally starting on a graduate scheme at the age of 22, finished my first graduate degree. And there I was, working my way up, very motivated, very enthusiastic, trying to get get like as far as I could. So I completed my graduate scheme. I completed my first professional qualification. I worked in the rail industry, and it was a very much male-dominated industry. And to be honest, that's been a pattern that's been flowing all throughout my career. And yeah, I managed to work on a team as an analyst, and then work my way up to a manager, and working as a team, as a small team at that time. And then I went on to work in the aerospace industry. I actually worked in aerospace defense, which I absolutely loved. You know, the projects that we did were just absolutely amazing in terms of the end product. And it took me all over the world, to be honest. I worked internationally, in lots of different countries. I was out visiting suppliers in, you know, in America or in Australia, all over Europe, obviously all over the UK as well. And I absolutely embraced and loved the opportunity. And what that gave me was the opportunity to work with people from different cultures, because what I saw was that actually people do work very differently. They respond to things very differently as well. So there's a different stimulus that's required in order to get people motivated and productive and efficient. So it was really good to analyze the sort of behavioral aspect towards the different cultures. Um, and then I went on after I was there for 7 years, and then I took a bit of time out and I traveled to different parts of the world, which I really enjoyed. And then I went back to my career, and I started my own business. Again, I found myself back in the rail industry, although there was an element of commercial aerospace that was attached to that. But there you go again, back in a very male-dominated environment, and again working my way up my ladder, so up the ladder, sorry. So I had my own business, I was my own manager, and I was working for the organization as a consultant, working on lots of different large scale projects, working in different roles, maybe mainly in commercial capacity, leading teams, working as part of a team, and lots of different challenges and adventures, if that's safe to say, in the workplace. So yeah, I think I've had pretty much a very fruitful career. Saying that, about 6 years ago, I actually did start an independent coaching business as well. So I started to realize that I'm actually really good at working with people. I'm actually good at mentoring people, and assisting people in the workplace. So this led me to initiate my own coaching business, working with clients one-to-one on a very temporary part-time basis, and something I've been able to launch much more so in terms of capacity and growth over the last year, which has been a really interesting journey for me. So there's that side of it includes, like I said, the mentoring, the education, the development. And although I have clients from all walks of life, a lot of my clients are actually women, but I also have a set group of clients which are the under 25s. So I feel very privileged to be able to work with that set of people, where the mentoring, the guidance, the development sort of is really, really handy, because they've got literally the whole of their careers and lives ahead of them. So that's where I currently am. That's me.
That's great, Nori, and I'm very much excited about moving forward, the two of us together. And I think both of us bringing our experience in coaching, and in particular, working with those two sets of clients, that being executives and being that under 25 and individuals working their way up the system, is something that we bring as a pair. So super excited about moving forward. So let me ask you a question while we're sitting here chatting about where we came from.
Yes.
Tell me something. Tell me how you reached your career goals. I know you talked a little bit about the different industries, but what are some of the things that really helped you get to where you wanted to go?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been a journey, an evolving journey from day one. But if I look back and think, what was it that actually helped me to keep on achieving, and literally not stop achieving in my professional life, was that go-getting sort of attitude that I have had. So it was very much about my mindset. It was very much a growth mindset. like my own self-belief in the fact that if I wanted to do something, if I wanted to achieve something, I could do it, and it was within my remit, and I was allowed to have what I wanted to have. I was allowed to get up the ladder as much as I wanted to. So in terms of there was no limits, that really helped me to overcome barriers and obstacles, obviously along the way. Also, I'd say my ambitious nature, and I know where that comes from. That comes from my dad, who's an entrepreneur within his own right. But that was imprinted into my head since I was a little child, that was a very important thing that needed to come out of life, to have ambition, to have achievement. But I would also say it's not just about what you think, it's also about putting the effort in. So there's a massive part of it which is about what you invest in yourself. So that comes with consistency. Yeah, that comes with literally sheer hard work, putting the hours in and being okay with doing that. Not trying to cut corners, not trying to like get to certain positions without doing the hard work of getting there, if you know what I mean. So I find in today's day and age, lots of people are very attached to titles, but they're not so interested about the journey and the hard work that you put in to get there. That is absolutely paramount, because once you're there, you will get asked questions, and you'll only be able to answer them if you've actually put the graft in and got there by doing that. So that again is one of the things that's really helped me. And like I said earlier about previously about getting over the barriers and the obstacles, obviously being a woman in a male dominated environment, and also a woman of color, there has been occasions, if I'm honest, where I feel like there has been reason why I maybe could have been held back, or there has been maybe a particular person that has made it more difficult for me for any reason. But I've been able to be resilient and overcome those obstacles and get there anyway, with whichever route you take. So I think in terms of reaching my goals, is very much comes down to the mindset, the motivation, and the effort. And if I ask you the same question in return, what would that be? What would your answer be?
Oh, great answer. You really made me think. Um, I think in terms of me, it's funny, but as we talk, I see a lot of parallels between the two of us in terms of our backgrounds and our perspectives, and that's probably one of the reasons why we sit here today. Because essentially I was also raised in a girls' private school in Victoria, British Columbia, and I was raised to believe that I could do anything that I wanted right from early days. It's what are you interested in? The earth is, the whole world is your oyster. And that's really the perspective that I took going forward. In my early years, I was very interested in medicine. So that was another thing that helped really motivate me through the academic side of my life. Following those academics and deciding that that wasn't the best route for me, I really, in a lot of ways, by mistake, ended up in something called the Management Trainee Program that was run by the Canadian federal government. And I ended up, saying, well, why not? May as well go check it out, and ended up on this wonderful journey in which I did close to 10 years of assignments in different departments and agencies. And the thing that really drove me was this concept of, look, I'll just figure it out. And it didn't matter whether I was given things I had no idea what to do with or how to do them. I just figured it out. And I think that led to this attitude, which was just try and stop me. And if you try and stop me, I'm just going to work harder. So, have fun with that. And I think, I have one example that I'd like to tell you about. And it's a little story about me in the early days, post-master's degree at Foreign Affairs and International Trade. And I was working on a project there, and I found that on a constant basis, the senior foreign affairs officers and managers really, didn't believe that I had anything to offer. And I remember, often feeling like it was sort of, they'd pat me on the head and send me down the hall. And those were the days when I really decided, it's time that I'm going to show them. And so that was a part of what pushed me forward. I have a little saying, which is by Alfred Lord Tennyson, which is to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. And that really has helped me grow through so many years. whether I was working for the chief scientist or in audit and evaluation or teaching executives, working with executives, helping them see where the blind spots are in their lives. That is really the thing that drove me. And like Nori has said so aptly, we really can do anything that we want, and we don't have limits. So don't let anyone tell you that you have those.
Absolutely. That's amazing. I love that answer.
So Nori, tell me, can you tell me about a practice or a trait that you've consistently used, really helped you in those career aspirations in the workplace and becoming successful?
Yeah, I would say that something that's given me an advantage is seeing the whole thing as literally an evolving journey. So not seeing any stops to it in terms of like, when I get to the end of this road, then I'm done, and that's enough for me. There was never sort of that mindset. I never had that. It was always like, well, what's next and what's next. So the way I've always worked in anything I've done, actually, personal or professional, is with the concept of there's always room for improvement. So seeking so in a workplace, for example, seeking improvement through incentive-based performance. So if you give people an incentive to improve, you create a continuous improvement culture where everybody is involved and everybody benefits, right? No matter how small or how large that benefit is, there is a benefit for everyone. So to have that, that's kind of really helped me to bring that about in whatever endeavor I'm involved in. So what I found, for example, with training and development, I was very much, I want to be on this training course, I want to be in that training course, because there's no limit to learning, right? I love education. And the more you learn, the more you know, the more you can then perform. And also the more you can actually help other people, which is the journey that obviously that I'm on now. I'm still improving too. There's, the way I see it, it's a lifelong journey. Learning and education is a lifelong journey. It never stops. So I'll give you an example. When I was in my first job, I did my professional qualification at the same time as working full time. Once that was done, I was onto my MBA, and I was doing that part time at the same time as working. That was difficult, but I was like, well, this is what I want, so I'm going to do it and I'm going to get it. And it took me a few years, which obviously it does when you do it part time, but I did it. So the more knowledge I had, I found the more I could bring to my organizations, the more I could bring to the people that are around me, the more I could benefit and the more they could benefit. So it's a collective experience. And what I found that this brings in the workplace, this kind of continuous improvement mindset, is it creates motivation. It means that people are heard, not just seen. So people are not just a number, which I find is a big thing in large organizations these days. It creates good interpersonal relationships at all levels of the organization, because if somebody, say on the shop floor, comes up with a great idea and it gets all the way up to the MD, there you go, there's a connection, because he wants to know who thought of this idea, right? So obviously improves morale. People feel part of a community, they have an identity, and they feel empowered. I can actually make a difference. So I feel everybody, whatever level they're at, can make a difference. And it also creates a sense of pride. So for me, it's this practice that I'm talking about is all about the quest of continuous improvement. And what about yourself, Liz? Back to you.
Okay. So yeah, one thing. Again, it boggles my mind how similar we are, which tells me something about not just the path we've taken, but our own career and life experience. Because continuous learning is, for me, everything.
Yes.
And I think I'm a certified change facilitator for the Center for Creative Leadership out of the United States. And that's one of the biggest messages that they teach in everything that they do. And it's around the bottom line is that everything changes every day. And the only constant is change. So the reality is we learn and we keep learning and we learn until the day we go, because the bottom line is that nothing's static. And in that same context, yes, we're always learning, but also life is about relationships. And so if we value our relationships with the people around us at work, in our communities, at home, then that has a huge impact on not just our own learning and the learning of others around us, but also in terms of how we all grow together. And that's something that I was always known for, which was caring about my people. And I had a lot of staff for a fairly long time, and that was one of the things that I was always known for. If anyone was ever in trouble or really needed help, I always stopped everything for them. And there were a number of times when I literally canceled meetings because there was something needed in the team. And that is, I think, very, very important to anyone leading people at any level in any organization. People are people, they're not numbers, as you said so aptly, Nori, and that's actually in my notes. So, and I think that's the critical part for a strong female leader. So speaking of that, Nori, tell me about what it takes to really succeed as that strong female leader in your industries and in general in life.
I love that question. So if we say, for example, what it takes today, today being the operative word, I think it's all literally about a person's mindset. So I'm really big on mindset, the way people think, and how that affects their behavior. So I think the empowered, successful leader today, in terms of a woman, is somebody who has that go-getter attitude, somebody who has her eye on the prize, who has, you know, she has a vision, she has somewhere where she needs to go. When she gets there, she has somewhere else she needs to go. So like we said earlier, that continually evolving journey. So for me, it's about the attitude that she has, the way she thinks about herself, and how she projects that on other people. So a leader is somebody who does believe in themselves, who does believe in their ability to perform in terms of whatever job they're doing or whatever role they're playing at that particular time. Also, a woman to be successful, I believe, has to look for a win-win situation. So that doesn't mean we are literally just looking out for ourselves. Because I know, Liz, one thing that we've spoken about is authenticity. That's
Mhm.
absolutely paramount. Whatever we do it with authenticity. So we're not trying to get somewhere by stepping on somebody else's toes or beating somebody else. Not at all. It's about getting a win-win situation for everyone, where there is the ultimate solution, where there's something in it for everyone, right? So a person of leadership thinks with that kind of mindset. They don't think from a selfish sort of perspective. So getting to the top authentically, that's what I was going to say. So also, I would say a leader should heavily influence the process of goals for the organization, but again, do this with interpersonal management. So this means having a degree of concern for humanness, for humanity, for people's feelings, paying attention to individuals' concerns, needs, right? Making decisions based on or through a reflection on everybody's needs. So within any capacity, there's always going to be small groups, but everybody's needs need to be met in some way, shape, or form, right? By getting to that end goal. And implementing at the same time that emotional intelligence that I'm talking about, caring about people, growing together, having a collective goal, seeing it as a journey for everyone, not just for yourself, and trying to win your own trophy, regardless of where everybody else stands, right? Um, also projecting a vision of for the future, for the future direction of whatever you're involved in. So vision, being a visionary leader, as we spoke earlier. I would also say that having a proactive approach, envisaging the future with some form of risk management, and measures in place, looking at internal and external circumstances and responding accordingly. And finally, I'll just say, like, from my own experience being a woman, again, in predominantly male environments, in terms of the jobs that I've had, not letting any sort of barrier stop you. So if there are an understanding that there's always going to be barriers, it's normal to have barriers, and actually your strength and resilience is built upon overcoming those barriers. So I think all of those things, encompassing all of those things, makes for me a woman, a strong female leadership person who, you know, exhibits those sorts of characteristics. And yeah, finally, just having your own voice and not being afraid to bring it out. So how about yourself? What do you think about that particular question?
You know, I would say, and you've touched on it a couple of times, in male-dominated environments in which we've spent many years collectively, probably 30 or 40 years between us at least.
Yeah.
I think we've learned something really important, which is we have to be true to ourselves,
Yeah.
and that means that it's totally okay to, for example, at one point, say 30 years ago, women didn't wear their hair down in the boardroom.
Wow.
Why not? We have it. Why don't we wear it the way we want to wear it? For many years, women wore skirted suits.
Yeah.
Today, we don't. Why
Yeah.
is that? Well, because if we want to wear pants, we wear pants.
Yeah.
And I think those are examples of, us saying we're strong, we're capable, we
Yes.
get it done of the rest of it. But in those environments, there are stereotypes that are set for the one or two women in the boardroom. And since we've both been in that situation where we've been, one of the few, that's really important.
Yeah.
Secondly, I would say, as I talked about earlier, that continuous learning, but openness in that continuous learning.
Yeah.
So, if we think it should be this way, and the environment dictates that it's slightly different, then we need to meet that. As anyone in the leadership would need to meet. But it's particularly critical for women, I think, to make sure that, we just never miss that deadline.
Absolutely.
And we know that we're good. And we know that we just won't miss the deadline.
Yeah.
But that said, so there can be no arguments. We haven't ever missed it. But that said, when we set the direction with and for our people, we need to listen to them, because we won't meet those deadlines if our people are not 100% behind us. And I know from personal experience that those interpersonal relationships are absolutely critical to meeting those deadlines. And I think a lot of the world never sees that. They see those things as mutually exclusive, but they're not, because your people are not going to go and do X or Y unless they feel A, that they're valued, B, that they're going to continue to learn, and C, that they're going to have opportunities themselves. And so for me, I think, the key is, meet that deadline, set that direction, but through caring for other people. And so it's not just about us being the best we can be, it's about us being the best our entire teams can be. And in Canada, I've seen it, in the North America and the US, I've seen many, many, many 360-degree feedback results in which that is just not the case. Interpersonal relationships are critical, and very few people out there, even today, are really honoring them the way that I did and the way that we need to going forward.
I love that. Amazing.
So tell me, since we've talked a lot about today and we've used that word over and over, what would you say is the most important trend for leadership going forward in 2021 and into the future?
Oh, wow, that's a really powerful question, especially where we sit today in terms of obviously the lockdown and the change in the dynamics of the way that people have been working over the last year. So having said that, I think for me, it has to be flexibility. So I believe flexibility is one of the things that it also shows the true nature of an effective leader, a leader that's be able to change and respond proactively with regard to the circumstances or situation that you're in. So over the last year, we've seen a lot of change in the dynamics and the way that we work. Predominantly, a lot of people have gone to work from home, right? This has required the fact that managers and leaders have an element of trust on their colleagues, on the people who work for them, because people have their free reins, so that change, it's happened, and I don't personally believe it can be fully undone or unchanged, right? I think obviously they're going to ask people to come back to work, in the offices, whatever environments people work in. but I don't think it's going to be the way it was back in 2019. I think the last year has changed the way people think. It's made
Mhm.
people realize, especially leaders, managers, directors, that actually we can be just as or more efficient with this new style of working, right? So it's a new era of productivity, inclusiveness, and connectivity in terms of the way we connect with each other. Um, we've got more time because that commute time that people used to have. I mean, my commute time was literally about an hour there and 2 hours a day I'm saving, which is amazing. I absolutely love that. I'm not a morning person anyway, so to have that extra hour is just like an absolute blessing for me. It's meant that there's increased communication virtually, so and taken away almost those hierarchies, because a manager or a leader, a director now has access, immediate access, to somebody at a much lower level in the organization. Whereas before it would have been like, oh, you've got to organize a meeting with me, or those people would never cross paths physically in an organization because people are tucked away in their own offices. So this is brought about enhanced communication. So it requires flexibility to be able to adapt to that approach. So there's more collaboration with the flexibility. It allows people to obviously work remotely and in a more flexible sort of style on their own terms. Um, Also, like I said earlier, having a trust culture, um, flexibility allows more empowerment. Because I know personally, and people that I've worked with, when they feel like their manager or their leader trusts them, they feel so much more empowered. They feel like working harder.
Yeah.
They don't want to let their manager down. They want to go the extra mile to make sure their manager's happy, because they want to respect the position their managers put them in the first place by trusting them. Yeah, and making everybody feel like they're a leader within their own right. So overall, you get happy workforce with leadership. And just to finish off on that question, I heard of this new notion, which I think is brilliant, which is called tight, loose, tight. And it's a type of a leadership that we portray back to people we work with, back to our teams. So what it means is, we tight initially is the fact that we set goals, we set expectations, we set clear requirements of what we want from the people that we work with. And where we go loose is where we give our workforce the freedom to fulfill those expectations in their own way, in their own style, in their own time. Obviously there's going to be deadlines for things, but there's not that pressure of I need to see you to believe that you're actually working towards something that I've asked you to do. And then finally back to tight again, where you follow up and you have accountability for the tasks that have been set. So again, it's called tight, loose, tight style of leadership, and I absolutely love that. And it's what it's about is goal and ambition related leadership, as opposed to the previous activity based leadership. So that's what I think. And obviously I'm going to ask you the same thing. What's your take on it?
Okay. So, you know, interestingly, um, I started teaching courses on dispersed teams and managing using technology a decade ago.
Yeah.
And we talked about it and we gave lip service to it for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I'm ecstatic. I'm not ecstatic that COVID came along, and certainly not ecstatic that people have lost their lives, but ecstatic because it has completely revolutionized the workplace.
Mhm.
And I hope that what will happen is that the things that you referred to, the flexibility, the increased trust, those kinds of things were necessary for us in the last year and a half and will be necessary forever going forward. But let's hope that this change, this fundamental change in how we've worked, will endure. And that as we physically start coming back together in the next year and a half, that doesn't stop. Because the beauty of that, as you've laid out so clearly, is people have more time. They have time to do the things that they need. They have more balance in their lives today. So why would we change that? Because productivity is directly linked to that. The other point I would make there is that there's an excellent book on trust that was written by, believe it or not, Stephen Covey, and it's called The Speed of Trust. And it's one of the very best pieces that's ever been written on not just personal and community trust, but workplace trust.
Mhm.
And I think, we know full well, and looking at the 360 results over the last decade or so, in Canada in particular, and in everything from managers to deputy ministers, we know that trust is critical. The other thing that is critical is delegation, and the beauty of what has happened is that delegation has happened by virtue of the technological change to the way we're working right now. And let's hope that that stays in play, because that is critical. Delegation is critical to the development of trust. And as we know, when we talk about trust, we know that trust is very carefully built. It takes time. It takes, a lot of communication, and it takes caring on the part of the leader to build that trust. And we all have this bank account of trust, and we build into the bank account. And if we don't build enough balance into a bigger balance, like money balance, into the account, then when we have to take from it, the account can get to zero. And I think for me, that's the best way to describe trust, in that, if we don't keep putting deposits into that trust account, then when we need it, there just won't be anything there. And I know that in the past, in very challenging environments where we've been working on, with high deadlines, no staff, and not a lot of money, trust has made the difference. And we've met our goals because of it. And in times when I've had to have conversations in which I had to take from the bank, it wasn't appreciated always, but it was always respected. And I think for me, going forward, that's not going to change going forward into 2022 and beyond. Those are integral things that I don't think change. And although we live in that white water changing world, those are critical. The flexibility you mentioned, the key trust components, and also our ability to delegate. And let's not forget those things. So tell me, looking back to you at the age of 25, what would you have said to yourself? If you could write a letter to the 25-year-old Nari, what would it say?
Wow, that's a really um it's a really good question, isn't it? I think it's a brilliant thing to self-reflect, and it's a really healing thing as well to go back to your old self and maybe look at things that you could have done differently, or things that you did well, so being happy about things that you did well. So if I was to go back to my 25-year-old self and look at things maybe differently, I would say to myself, don't worry. Like, I think I was really worried that I need to do this and I need to do that. I was a bit of a busybody at that time, and I was trying to achieve sort of beyond my comfort. I was like willing to put my comfort to a side, but I had that real achievement sort of mindset. And like I said, I know where it comes from. I would also say to myself, don't rush, because it's like I said, it's a journey, it's an evolving journey, it's a long journey. So go at a comfortable pace, everything considering, just allow the pace to be what it is. Don't try to rush that pace. There's nobody to impress apart from yourself, right? So as long as you're happy within yourself, you're doing the right things authentically, as I said, um, and you're working your way up at a comfortable pace, I think that's a more relaxed way of achieving what you want to achieve. I would definitely put more emphasis on well-being and mindfulness, because that's what I'm bringing into this a little bit here. Uh, so, I mean, don't get me wrong. I've always, traveled, had lots of holidays, had lots of experiences in terms of, um, just experiences abroad. You're doing fun things and seeing places and meeting people from all over the world. That was very, very, it was a very, very nice thing to do. And in a way, I think that is looking after your well-being, expanding your mind. But at the same time, like I said, going at a comfortable pace. So looking after your well-being, making time for things that are good for you, that make you feel relaxed. So I was all up for all the sports and all the hobbies that were active, but I wasn't up for things that were relaxing, that would help to relax me. And that's where mindfulness comes in. Like, for example, now I practice yoga a couple of times a week, and that really helps me to relax my mind. Also meditation, these things I wasn't aware of when I was 25, and even if I was aware of them, I know the old version of me would never have given them any value, because I would have thought, well, what am I going to gain from just sitting there thinking and looking into space for half an hour? I would not have seen the value. But now I see the fundamental value of it. Um, so also to also see that, understand that it's not a race, instead it's a journey, right? Embrace it and enjoy every minute of it, right? um and yeah, when I'm talking about race, I'm saying I was in a race with myself, because I've never really been the sort of person who looks externally to try to compare or try to be better than other people, although I do have role models and I do look up to people. Yeah. And I see traits that I like, that I think I find inspiring. So, looking at it from that perspective, which is a growth way of looking at it. But I believe in a race with myself, or in a race with the expectation that I thought that others had of me, predominantly my elders, family members. But really there was no race. And I totally, like, now where I'm embracing the journey. I'm being led by my intuition, and I'm just following it at the pace that's coming, and I'm loving it. I'm much more relaxed than I used to be. So in a nutshell, that's what I would say to the 25-year-old me. And how about yourself? What would you say to your 25-year-old self?
I'm going to twist that a little bit, because I actually think that my 25-year-old self, in my case, was better at a lot of things than my current self is. And what I mean by that is that my 25-year-old self was so resilient and so strong, and knew exactly what 25-year-old self wanted.
Mm.
And that's a little bit, and I will definitely refer to your comment about the race, because that definitely was something that I was focused on too. But it was a race with me, just like you've said, but it was also a race to meet goals that I set that were arbitrary. Like, I want to be I want to be an executive in the public service. And at that time, that was sort of the big goal, right? And so everything led to that at that point, because I was looking only forward. And I think today I see that much more. The journey is the journey. And that, and the other thing I'll say, and I've said it for most of my life, is a job's a job. And no matter how much you believed in what you did, it's still, they will still find someone else to do it if you're not looking after yourself and you're not well. And so, that leads me to that point about, self-care is critical. But 25-year-old me used to ride horses. I used to coach horseback riding. And the time that I spent either riding or competing was still time that I slowed down, and that I spent time connecting with myself, but also with my animal in a really true, deep partnership. And that's something that the workplace tries to mess with. And I think, we all need to think about those things. So I was a little bit unlike some folks in their 20s that would be less confident and kind of, more focusing on, oh, I feel like I'm the imposter. I don't know anything. And for me, it was more sort of, get out of my way, here I come, which also led me to some issues, right? So the get out of my way, here I come, had some value, and I'm looking back on it and saying that is something I need to embrace. But at this age, embrace it by opening through my intuition and allowing that to bring me to that point of depth. I also had very strong values that I still have today. And so it's just retelling myself again that those values were always those wonderful guiding things that helped us make the best possible decisions in the toughest times. And, those nights when you were sleepless because there were decisions going on around you that impacted your people. Those things were my values telling me, where the runway was. And those are still there today. And, I have made some career decisions around the fact that my values were pushed beyond any degree of comfort. And when that happens, that's, there's no race, as you said so aptly. The race is about meeting our own needs. It's about staying focused on ourselves in terms of staying strong and capable. And most importantly, it's about us stopping once in a while to breathe and to be and to listen to our intuition.
Beautiful. That's amazing. I absolutely love that. So saying that, I think we've kind of come to the end of our session. So Liz, what would you like to say in terms of
Yeah.
journey and what we're doing next?
So I'm really excited about the next steps that are coming forward, and I know Nari, you are too. I can see that big smile on your face.
Yeah.
So we will in a few days, Nori will put us up onto a YouTube channel, and she'll say a little bit more about that in just a moment. And keep in mind that that there are lots of great new nuggets coming your way, and we're really excited about the potential to have a number of different subjects that we're going to discuss, including some things like, what it's like to be that only woman in the boardroom. And we've touched on that a little bit today, and we'll expand on that. Being and allowing ourselves to be that visionary empath, both at home and in the workplace. And I think we've touched on that a little bit as well. We'll go into more detail in terms of mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and we'll talk a little bit about resilience and the impact that has on change as we go forward. So there's lots more options to come. Please feel free to send us your feedback. If there's something that you really want to delve into more deeply with us, we'd love to do that. So that's our general plan, but that doesn't mean that it's set in stone. As Nori said a few moments ago, flexibility is key. So we're there to give you some of the things that you're really looking forward to hearing about and to learning about. And we might even have some very cool interviews with some other folks too, just, hint, hint. So Nari, I'll pass that over for you to do the final close, and thanks for listening.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you very much for that, Liz. Yeah, absolutely. So our YouTube channel is called Nari and Liz, Women in Leadership. So please do find us there and follow, subscribe. My personal Instagram profile is skyhigh_coach. So on that Instagram profile, you will find a link to the podcast. So you can listen to this via audio, or obviously you can watch us on YouTube. Like Liz said earlier, we will be in the future interviewing guests. So if you'd like to appear on our channel, you feel like you have something to bring on this topic of leadership, empowerment, motivation, being a visionary leader and the future, please do get in contact. So Liz, could I just ask you what your profile is so people can find you?
Yeah, sure. So you can find me at elizabethhoxter.com, and elizabethhoxter@gmail.com is my email. So if you want to have a further conversation, either of those two places work, and looking forward to seeing you all again soon.
Perfect. So thank you very much for today, and thank you for watching. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. So watch this space and have a lovely day. Take care. Bye-bye.